What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Taurean Reloaded channel. If you are new, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when I upload a new video or go live, and have your notifications set to all by clicking that bell. Also, be sure to like, comment, and share this content on your various social media platforms. Before I get started with this, I have to give a shout out to Plainest Jane, or the Plainest Jane. As y'all know, I actually gave her a shout out in one of my videos, the one about Everett Jackson. But the way I found out about this was not from her referring this to me, but I happened to go and click onto her community tab, and I saw something that really disturbed me. Like, it disturbed the hell out of me, and as well as her and everyone else that was leaving a comment on her community tab under the particular post. So this, ironically, how ironic, this was posted during quote unquote Pride Month, and this is coming out of Arizona. It says Scottsdale Unified accused of using Unitown Club, quote unquote, as a cover for gender identity propaganda. Basically, what they did was they used something and they covered it up as something else to really push a particular agenda. And I'm going to actually scroll through once I get done reading the article and show you exactly what they've been doing or trying to do behind the scenes before they got busted. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and read this article. It says a student leadership and diversity club in a Phoenix area school district asked students a series of questions on their sexuality, including how they knew they were straight. My question is, why is questions like that even coming up in school? Like, that feels kind of personal. But okay, let's continue. The question was part of a program used by the Unitown Club in the Scottsdale Unified School District to discuss sexual orientation with students, according to emails released by the Arizona Daily Independent. The club's description contains no reference to sexual education. The curriculum, which was created by the organization Anytown Learning, lists 16 discussion questions on sexual orientation, including what students think caused their heterosexuality. Excuse me. How they decided they were heterosexual, why heterosexual relationships are unstable, and whether they had considered that heterosexuality was a phase they would grow out of. The sexual orientation exercise also asked students, considering the menace of overpopulation, how could the human race survive if everyone was heterosexual? At Scottsdale USD reportedly hosted a student club to promote leadership and diversity, which was actually a cover for teaching gender identity and sexuality. This is one example of a worksheet that they gave out, and I'm going to show that towards the end after I'm finished reading the article. The curriculum also says that gender expression and gender identity are individual choices, and gender orientation is an individual's internal sense of their gender that may not align with the person's birth assigned sex. The program also provided a model activity for students to place themselves on the gender spectrum by grouping themselves in different parts of the room. Anytown Learning describes itself as a human relations organization dedicated to educating, embracing, and empowering leaders to promote social change. The Unitown program is a high school variation of the organization's Social Justice Summer Camp. Social Justice Summer Camp? That's a thing? I mean, I guess. Unitown is an experiential, interactive learning experience that educates, raises awareness, and amplifies the voices of high school change agents. The organization's website says, confronting the isms in the world: racism, sexism, ageism, faithism, classism, ableism, etc. Unitown participants begin to develop inter and intrapersonal skills that build confidence and lay the foundation for changing systems of prejudice and discrimination at their school and in their broader community. Scottsdale Unified School District had previously made national headlines after it was revealed that a member of the district school board had compiled a dossier full of personal information of parent activists who had expressed displeasure at the district's efforts to incorporate critical race theory and other controversial programs into student instruction. In a statement to the Washington Examiner, Scottsdale Unified School District spokeswoman Christine Harrington said that the Unitown Club was first established in the district in 1989 and is strictly voluntary and requires explicit parental permission. She added that the questionnaire on sexual orientation was used as a part of a skit. Again, Unitown Camp is not a required activity. Parental permission is required, Harrington said. Programming is evaluated regularly. Of the 4-day camp, approximately a 90-minute block was used to identify how to build empathy and understanding for students who identify as members of the academy. Students have never been asked to review or respond to any of these forms of questions. Rather, the questions were used as a part of a skit by a camp staff that is no longer part of the program and hasn't been since before the pandemic. So I read to you the article, but now I'm about to show you what this worksheet looks like, and it's like 4 of them. Okay, so here it is right here. It says Anytown, Arizona. This is one of the sheets. It says sexual orientation exercise. Goals to reduce homophobia and discrimination based on sexual orientation and create straight allies for, they put GLBT people, so they just flip the letters around. Key learnings: raise awareness of the experiences of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and questioning youth. Understand homophobia as an unrealistic fear of or generalized negative attitude based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Increase ability to distinguish between myth and reality in sexual orientation. Then here are the questions. It says choose at least 8 to 10 from the list, and these are the questions that they have. The first one says, what do you think caused your heterosexuality? The next one says, when and how did you first decide that you were heterosexual? The third one says, is it possible that your heterosexuality is just a phase that you may grow out of? 4 says, is it possible that your heterosexuality stems from a neurotic fear of others of the same sex? 5 says, if you've never slept with a person of the same sex, is it possible that all you need is a good gay/lesbian lover? 6 says, to whom you've disclosed your heterosexual tendencies? 7 says, why do you heterosexuals feel compelled to seduce others into your lifestyle? 8 says, why do you insist on flaunting your heterosexuality? Can't you just be who you are and keep quiet? The next one says, would you want your children to be heterosexual, knowing all the problems they face? 10 says, a disproportionate majority, side note, the actual figure is 98%, of child molesters are heterosexuals. Do you consider it safe to expose our children to heterosexual teachers? 11 says, even with all the societal support marriage receives, the divorce rate is spiraling. Why are there so few stable relationships among heterosexuals? 12 says, why do heterosexuals place so much emphasis on sex? 13 says, considering the menace of overpopulation, how could the human race survive if everyone were heterosexual? 14. Could you trust a heterosexual therapist to be objective? Don't you fear that the therapist might be inclined to influence you in the direction of his or her own learnings? 15. How can you become a whole person if you limit yourself to compulsive, exclusive heterosexuality and fail to develop your natural, healthy homosexual potential? And 16. There seems to be very few happy heterosexuals. Techniques have been developed that might enable you to change if you really want to. Have you considered electroshock therapy? Are y'all peeping these questions? Some of these questions are so off the wall, and well, not some of them, all of them are weird as hell. Now imagine if the roles was reversed and this was people asking that you replace heterosexual with homosexual, or any of those other letters in the academy. It would be an outrage. But oh wait, there's more. This is just the opener. Now this one right here is one of the skits. As you can see, it says skit number 2. I don't know what skit number 1 was. It says, who am I, or Herman's Head, and this is 5 minutes. The premise is the delegates will quote unquote peek in on the thought process of one individual, male or female, struggling with his or her sexuality. The skit will show the confusion, isolation, despair, and helplessness that may lead a person to unhealthy ways of dealing with their sexuality. The setup: 1 chair for lead character. 1. Counselor should prepare the following roles for skit presentation. Lead character: 5 representatives of their society: parents, church, religion, best friend, current opposite gender relationship. And the other one says potential same gender relationship. 2. Begin skit with lead character talking to self, addressing the following concerns. What is wrong with them? Why am I so confused? What is going on? What are these feelings that I am having? 3. The 5 representatives stand in a semicircle behind the lead character. 1 by 1, the representatives of society give their opinions. Remember, these are the lead character's impression of each response. So extreme reactions are not unfounded, and each character should include a way to introduce themselves, i.e., we are your parents. How could you do this to us? Parents: concern for their happiness, not knowing who the lead character is anymore, not recognizing them as their son or daughter, said that they won't have grandchildren, etc. The church or religion says distaste for choice, unwelcome in the church, condemned as a sinner. Best friend: concern about whether or not they are attracted to them, if that means that they couldn't be friends anymore, being disgusted by the potential relationships. Current opposite gender relationship, confused by sudden disinterest, angry that lead character has quote unquote lied to them all this time, sad that they won't be together as a couple. And the last one is potential same gender relationship, eager to get to know the lead character, arrogant about the other character's responses, thinks that they know what is best for the lead character. Now it's crazy how they wrote all these narratives out right here, and they put them into a I guess you can say the stereotypical part, not realizing that even these characters or these right here could sometimes be accepting. But see, I know what they're doing, but that's why they said this is pushing propaganda, because that's exactly what it is. This whole thing is a big propaganda push. Then it says, after each aspect of society speaks, they all begin to bombard the lead character with their points of view. The noise reaches a crescendo, and the lead character yells, "I can't take it anymore," or something dramatic that expresses confusion, frustration, and anger. Lights out at that moment of silence following a character's eruption. Note, it has been powerful to include a toy gun as a prop at the end that the character takes out. No actual indication of suicide is given, but the potential is there to raise awareness. And it cuts off right there, but now we're into another part where it says safe zone training. Stars exercise gender identity and sexual orientation 101. The goal is to reduce homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity to create straight allies for Academy people. The key learnings is to raise awareness of the experiences of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning youth, and other sexual identities and gender identities. Now you see why I call it the Academy. Understand homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia as an unrealistic fear or generalized negative attitude based on sexual orientation and or gender identity. Identify our personal use, acceptance, and tolerance of stereotyping. This is part 3, Gender Identity 101, and I guess this is a 30-minute exercise. It says, explain that before we begin our next section, we are going to review definitions and terms so that everyone has a common vocabulary. We learned in our last section that sexual orientation and gender identity are not the same. But what exactly is gender identity? First, we will cover biological sex. What makes up biological sex? Answer: hormones, chromosomes, and internal and external genitalia. And you would think it would just end right there, but when it comes to the Academy, they are trying to remix that. Science, just what is that? So it's these 3 things combined that make up your biological sex, which is really interesting because when a baby is born, they actually do one thing before they assign it a sex at birth. What do? The doctor looks between the legs. Is there a vagina or a penis? If there's a vagina, you are assigned female at birth, and if it's a penis, you're assigned male at birth. Yet in actuality, we know that it takes these 3 things combined for you to know what your biological sex is. Here they go. 1, a person can have a penis, but internally can have a uterus and ovaries. A person can have a vagina on the outside, but inside has a uterus and ovaries and undescended testicles. Or many other scenarios, there is a lot of different quote-unquote combinations that could happen. So basically, whatever you feel inside is it's all about feelings. Again, it's not about what it is, it's about what you think and how you feel. In other words, you might be intersex if it comes up the retired name was hermaphrodite, which should be left only to amoebas that have all male and all female and can reproduce themselves. Humans can't do that. ADD intersex at this time. If we can see that biological sex is not simply the binary that we've been taught growing up, that it is way more complicated than that external genitalia someone has, then it will be easy for us to understand what we have been taught about gender. 2, gender is in fact a social construct, which means it is something that society has made up. Although it is a social construct, it comes with very real implications in our society. They keep trying to tell us there's no agenda. This whole, like I'm telling you, this is agenda all the way through. An example of how gender is a social construct: pink and blue. In the 1800s, all new babies were put into white dresses. In the beginning of the 1900s, boy babies were put into pink because red is considered the color of strength, power, and independence, and pink is just the softer, younger version. When did it change? World War II. In the concentration camps, everyone had to wear a symbol on why they were a bad person. In the camps, Jews wore the yellow Star of David. Gay men wore a pink triangle, so pink became associated with effeminate men. Gay men, so we changed the colors in the 40s, putting pink on girls and blue on boys. This social construct has real implications because as a society, we have divided people within a binary, and we view gender as having to maintain what it means to be boy or girl in our society. Society teaches us the capital T truth about what gender is through bathrooms, etc. What we are taught is there are only two genders. What we know to be the reality is that there are more than two genders. What they know, that is their reality. Move on and define gender orientation, an individual internal sense of their gender. Gender orientation does not necessarily align with the sex sign at birth. It is the deep down inner feelings you have about your gender and who you are. Draw a heart and note that this is not a human heart, what a human heart looks like, but I am not an artist. So this, our gender orientation is how we feel about our gender, but what are the ways we might label our gender? And here it is: male, woman, transgender, genderqueer, gender fluid, non-conforming, gender flux, man, gender, androgynous, queer, female, bigender. That's too many. The only ones I know is male, woman, man, female, gender. This one here, queer, transgender. I've heard of non-conforming. I've heard of androgynous, but I haven't heard of this bigender or this gender flux or this gender queer. A gender fluid. Oh, see, it's a lot, and like I said, I'm going through this because I want people to understand what they are putting out there they're trying to put out there into the masses right now. Some of you probably did not even know this existed, unless I have some subscribers who are from Arizona, of course. Then you might have heard about it. Is that this is called our gender identity. Write it down above all the words. It is how we define ourselves, and our identities are important to us. Our orientation is how we feel. Our gender identity is what we say or call ourselves, and now how we express all of that is our gender expression. Outside, clothing, hair, makeup, undergarments, mannerisms, how you carry yourself, walk, sit, limp wrist, voice, volume, pitch, high or low, softness, and strength. Decorate, jewelry, tattoos, hats, scarves, watches. Let's look at these three things together one more time. Your gender expression is a choice. You get to choose how you express yourself, or at least we hope you get to choose this. Depending on your parents' dress code, access to money, you might not be fully able to express yourself the way you want to. Gender identity, what you call yourself, which can be the same as your orientation or could not be, is a choice. This might alter or change as you explore your own identity, depending on the space or people you are with. And your gender orientation, how you feel deep down inside about your gender and who you are. These three things might not always align for one person. It could be because they cannot say how they feel about say how they feel because of safety reasons. It could be because gender is more complex for them than the titles that exist or people's understanding of gender. It could be because they themselves are still understanding what their gender fully means because we have so been socialized into these boxes. Okay, five says when the gender assigned at birth is the same as your orientation, this is called cisgender. And many people who those of us who are heterosexual, we hate this damn term. Cisgender is when you are assigned a sex at birth is the same as your gender orientation, common but not normal. Part 4, the gender unicorn spectrum. I'm going to just skip reading all of that because I want y'all to see what they put down here. This is the gender unicorn that they created. Look at this. This is the gender unicorn. Gender identity, gender expression, sex assigned at birth, physically attracted to, emotionally attracted to. The gender unicorn. Let's see, gender spectrum. I'm actually tired of reading all this. I think y'all pretty much get the picture of it. Of course, I'm going to leave the link in the description of what this is. I think I've read enough. It's almost at the end anyway, but if they try to tell you that there is no agenda, here you go right here. The fact that they had to, I guess you can say in a way, lie about what their true narrative of what they were really doing is to cover up what they were really doing. It's definitely an agenda at work here. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. End of story. But with that being said, I'm going to end the video on that note. Y'all let me know what you think.